Hello and welcome back to My Life's Toil. I'm Neil and this is Wednesday today, so it is the start of week 10 on my Mounjaro journey. We'll discuss how things have been going in the last week and certainly we'll have a weigh-in as well it's only been 4 days from Saturday and we'll see how that's gone. But I did want to discuss some comments and questions and things that have come up on the channel over the last few days. And there's some really good, valid questions and points as well. And some really good support from people out there that take part in getting in touch, offering some really good advice, things that they've done. And there's been some really pressing questions that keep coming up as well. So we'll go through them. Later on in this video, we'll do my jab, which will be jab 10. I'm still on the 5 milligram doses, which I've discussed the reasons why I've stayed on them. And we'll also talk a little bit about how the 5 milligram doses have suited me as well. But let's recap basically how things have gone over the last few days. It's been, since the weekend, it's been quite a good week. The suppression has been as expected. Last couple of days always drops off for me, so I'm literally using my willpower and sort of getting used to that. That's been better than it has been. If you remember, only a couple of weeks ago, I'd fallen off the wagon quite a bit and it was a bit of a testing time and we discussed that quite heavily and I got some really good support back from that. And I see a lot of people struggle around that as well because when we take the Mounjaro and when it works for us, the suppression, the food craving just really works well, doesn't it? But when that drops off and it makes you realize that how hard it can be. So we'll talk about that a little bit. As I say, it's not been too bad the last few days. I think as you go through the weeks, you realize it's coming. And there's a couple of questions that we'll touch upon this that we'll get to shortly. So I think that knowing that it's coming and sort of planning ahead can help with that. But sometimes it takes us a little bit by surprise, and we'll go into that a little bit more as we go through the questions, which we'll get onto now. So the first question that I've got up for this week is, do you aim for a certain amount of protein grams a day, and do the Huel drinks help achieve it? Not a massive meat eater, so looking for alternative ways of getting protein in. And that's a good question because we're being told to up our protein a bit, aren't we, when we're losing weight? And this is because we can lose muscle mass. And that's why it's important, if you can, to do some sort of resistance training whilst we're using this to try and keep up our muscle. The Huel drinks, I'm not affiliated, and I've got my Huel t-shirts on again today because this one fits me quite well. But the Huel drinks, I have Huel and I have the black edition because they are higher in protein, which is something I'm sort of mindful of. Now, I believe, if memory serves me right, the recommended amount of protein per day when we're losing weight is 1.6 grams to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. Check that out anyway, but that's what's recommended when you are trying to lose weight. But now, getting back to the Huel, in the Huel there is 40 grams per serving, and I only have one a day. And I find the Huel works well for me. Just sometimes I don't feel that hungry in the mornings, especially on the jabs. Sometimes nauseous in the morning as well. So that's one of the things I could recap over the week. I still have the nausea mornings, especially the first couple of days after the jab, which a lot of people report. And while we're on it, I'm still having the constipation issues. I really have to keep on top of that. It sort of gets to a certain point, without going too graphic, that it's got no alternative but to remedy itself. And I want to talk a little bit about the supplements as well, because a few people have been asking about that, and there's a couple of fairly important things to talk about there. So yeah, protein is important, but it's all about balancing the diet out. And I keep saying it, but using the Mounjaro when it affects our cravings, and not everyone gets the reduction in cravings, but to use that to its maximum benefit. Yes, there are people that take Mounjaro and can eat whatever they like, they get no side effects, and they drop weight. That's few and far between. But the idea is to help us, let it help us make good food choices. And if you've got no cravings for rubbish foods, basically, eat healthy and make sure you are in a calorie deficit as well. Something else which I think one of the questions touches upon. And we're all different. So really, there is a calorie amount that we need per day for men. It's a little bit less for women. It's around 2,000, 2,500, and just under 2,000, around 2,000 for women. But these apps, and again, we'll touch upon this later, that I've mentioned before, can help us with that and they can help us achieve it. And you don't have to pay for these apps, you can get the free versions as well. So we'll go into that a little bit longer. But yeah, the protein intake up in that is quite important. And the next question, hi Neil, well done. No wonder you're chuffed. Yeah, I like that word, don't I? Could you tell me what you've eaten since you last got weighed? Right, so this is basically my diet's nothing special, but I am trying to make better choices um, when the cravings aren't there. So literally in my diet now, since I've been on Manjaro, it's the snacking, which I've covered before. I could literally snack for the best of them because I could eat all day healthily. I could go most of the day at work and not really eat, which isn't really healthy. I know there's people do the fasting and things like that, but I used to get headaches if I didn't eat all day. But then I'd just absolutely go bonkers on the evening and just keep eating until literally I went to sleep, and that's where my problem lays really. So now, because of the Manjaro, I don't snack. That's the main thing. But generally, on a day-to-day basis, I have the meal replacement Huel drink usually on a morning, which I graze on from breakfast time through to about lunchtime. And then, if I'm at work, I'll only have something like a high-protein yogurt, low-fat yogurt, sometimes some fruit. Sometimes I will have just a dish of scrambled egg or something, just to tide me over whilst I'm at work. And then a proper evening meal or tea, as we call it, which will be anything from it could be jacket potato with a nice salad. I like to do these big mix salads, which I think I mentioned on one of them before, which will have everything in it. So it's really nice. It's filling at the time. It makes you feel like you've had plenty. But I'm eating a lot of fish. Like so, if I have toast, which isn't very often, and I'll only have a couple of slices of healthy-ish bread. You know, this seedy brownish type bread. I'll only have a couple of them. And I used to have sandwiches every day, which isn't great for you, really, is it? Bread is really full of carbs, isn't it? I still have a little bit of rice. So I think Cornet Blues mentioned he's on the brown rice, the brown basmati rice, which is really good because it's got good carbs in, hasn't it? I wanted to mention that. So that was a really good idea. And I was going to get some, but I forgot to get that on the shopping when we went last week. So that's an alternative there, but I still have a little bit of rice. I'll do healthy curries. I'll cook a curry from scratch, and I won't put like all the fat stuff in. I'll tiny bit of olive oil, usually a chicken curry. All the spices from the cupboard. I use tomato puree because I don't like tinned tomatoes or anything like that. But there are loads of ways that you can really cut back on the fats and things like that. I mean, the worst fats they say are the vegetable oils and things like that, aren't they? Because they solidify inside of us and they're hard to get through the system. So olive oil is a good thing. These spray oils are always good as well if you want to make lifestyle changes around that. Other things I'll have, I'll do stir fries. I'll do a lot of stir fries. We'll have prawn stir fries. We'll have chicken again stir fries. I do sometimes use those sachets you buy because there's not a lot in them. But they're pretty good, especially shared amongst the family. Lots of bean sprouts, egg noodles. You know the protein noodles you get. Um, Lots of different veg peppers and things like that in. And I don't want to go too boring with this, but yeah, lots of fish. If I have something on toast, I'll even have beans on toast one night sometimes. I've cut right back on things like cheeses, but I still have a little bit of cheese just grated into a salad because it makes it a little bit more exciting, doesn't it? And it's not a major issue to have. You've got to find whatever you're eating. It's got to be interesting because if we just have the same thing every day and we're just following that same routine every day, we'll soon get bored of the diets. And like I've said before, this is where we're in danger of falling off the diets, isn't it? Because we tend to, oh, well, we can only have this, or we fall into that sort of category of just having a particular type of food that gets us through the diet for a certain time. I remember this, and I'm not knocking Slimming World. I used to fall into sort of a little bit of a groove of finding certain things under the diet that worked well for you, and that was all about food optimizing. That was, and then you tend to just stick with it, and it gets quite mundane, and that's where the danger is of getting bored of what we're eating. So I think it's really good to find varied diets. Come the weekend, sometimes I'll have a proper breakfast, and by that I mean I'm not eating so much in the way of cereals. Certainly not the sugar-filled cereals. I'll have things like shredded wheat with skim milk. I'll have scrambled eggs again. Sometimes I'll have poached eggs, and I might even have mackerel on toast. You know, the tin mackerel. Empty all the oil out of it. I'll try and get the ones with the olive oil. Sometimes sunflower oil. Sometimes I'll have proper mackerel. I do love my fish, to be fair, and they're healthy oils and things like that in them, high protein. Um, and sometimes I'll even enjoy. We've had a couple of takeaways actually on the Saturday nights planned. I'll always have something, and I've mentioned this before again. And I'll have the chop suey, which is full of lots of different vegetables. It's not necessarily cooked that healthy from the Chinese takeaways, but that's a bit of a treat. And just include it and just be honest with the calories if you're counting them. I don't count them every day, but it's good to get a treat. And some people have a day off. We've mentioned this before as well. We talked about the chocolate thing. Some people include things like chocolate in their diet and it works well for them. For me, and a lot of people agree with this that I've seen in the comments, if I was to have that bit of chocolate as a treat, that could be the catalyst for me falling off the wagon. So I tend to try and avoid it. And I'm in my mind at the moment, and it's not always like this, the thought of the taste of chocolate in my mouth isn't a good taste at the moment because I didn't enjoy it the last time I had it. It was just there, and it was just a routine thing, just getting into that, just feeling that I needed it, but I didn't. So that was a good question anyway. So I hope I didn't blabber on too much about that one. Next question. It's actually a comment. Someone put not the most interesting story, but while working yesterday, I walked past a chip shop that I'd always grab some chips from while working. Instead of the smell enticing me in, it actually had the opposite effect. It just smelt greasy and horrible. It's amazing how Mounjaro turns off the voice that tells you you need bad food. That's absolutely right, isn't it? And chips, what we're talking about, because there's a lot of American people and people from around the world that watch, aren't they? We're talking about fries. We call them chips over because it's chip potatoes, isn't it? And yeah, so totally understand what you're saying. That's exactly what I was saying about the chocolate. The thought of the taste of chocolate at the moment, and it's not always like this, so isn't a good thought at the moment. Whereas if I thought about Cadbury's in the past, that would be like, oh yeah, just. But now I'm trying to I think I'm training my mind. I think it's me, not the Mounjaro. But that's a really good example. It's not boring at all. It's a good thing because it shows that what it does for us, doesn't it? And if it gives you that effect, try and train your mind into thinking, well, I don't need that. And it's like, when you go to visit somebody, maybe you've had your tea or your dinner on the night time, and they've put something else on, and you're thinking for the sake of it, oh yeah, I'll have some more. When you don't really need to. Um, it's about going too far as well, isn't it? Like I say, we've got to enjoy our food, but we've got to know when to stop because we've been talking in the past about obesity and this weight issue being a disease. And I think that's how we need to see this because I, like most people that I speak with, really struggle around here and have, without the help from Manjaro, would never be able to get myself in better shape, never have dropped the weight. We've all been on diets before, and someone else mentioned, and it's a comment I haven't put up actually, where they struggled and they always reached a certain weight bracket of how much they'd lost, and then they'd just fall off and it would just start going back up again. And we've all been there, and that's why, again, why we're here. So it's good to train the mind. And I think that's just a really good point. That's why I've included that today, because it just shows that use that Mounjaro, taking away those horrible thoughts and making us not like things as much anymore. Try and really enforce that in our minds moving forward. This next question's quite an interesting one as well. Not everyone suffers with them, and I hadn't suffered with this until fairly recently. How can I get rid of sulfur burps? I can't stomach liquid medicine. Luckily, they only last 48 hours from taking my jab. Now, I only had, I think, really one episode of sulfur burps. I do get indigestion. I'm not going to go all over it again, but I've got a history of indigestion problems through certain things. It's certain foods for a lot of people, like egg is the big culprit. Now, the one night I had an omelette fairly late at night. I'd worked quite late, and I thought just have something with egg in. And it must have been 8, 9 o'clock at night that I'd had this. And oh my God. I woke up in the early hours and I felt so gassy, and I was just thinking about it. I was belching, and this taste and the smell, it was just like this rotten, putrid, rotten egg smell, sulfur burps. And I had them for at least the next 24 hours all through work. And I was so mindful. I mean, it was disgusting. I'm not going to go, well, I am going to go a little bit graphic here. Working in my little office at work, in between patients, I was literally, I had to open a window because I'm sure they thought I'd got really bad farts or something, to put it nastily. Yeah. Right. Answers are, someone replied to this, and some people, basic Rennies, antacid type tablets like that, just to chew on, helps them. Peppermint oil capsules, tablets, peppermint tea, all those type of things. Now, if you can stomach the liquid side of things, it's Gaviscon, that type of thing. Peptac, plenty of fluids just to try and wash things through. But the main thing is, and I've done a little bit of Googling on this as well, is just to avoid those particular foods that sit in our stomach and basically ferment or rot in our stomach. Because that's literally what's happening. Because of the gastric emptying, slowing down, your stuff sits in your tummy longer. And it's not a nice thing to think about, that, is it? Next comment mentions that they agreed on the flapjacks, the warrior flapjacks that are brought, and he thought they were absolutely rubbish. I mean, they filled a hole, to be fair. And he's put, I supplement protein among other things to assist my resistance training. Conflictingly and perhaps surprisingly, I find the Warrior Crunch protein bars are absolutely delicious. Perhaps worth a try if you're still after supplementing protein with snacks. That's a good idea, because there's a lot of people, they can't manage bigger meals now, can they? And if you need to up the protein, then to have healthier snacks where there's extra protein in aren't a bad idea. And they mention that they get the variety packs from Amazon, so the one flavor doesn't get too boring. Good idea. And if you're not eating a lot, just to make sure that you are getting protein in your diet. And they're not too expensive as well. It's found the cheapest around £14 to £18 a box of 12, which just over £1 each, I suppose, isn't it? So it's something to consider as well. Yeah, good point. Next comment is quite an important one, really. And they say, I'm one of the frustrated ones. 2.5 milligrams for 4 weeks, 5 milligrams for 4 weeks. No side effects, no suppression. Don't feel any different. Using the NutriCheck app and in calorie deficit. Lost 13 pounds. That's a blinking good loss, to be fair. But that's down to willpower, not the jab. Ordered the 7.5 to see how that works. If not, how long do I keep going for? I did reply to this comment on YouTube, actually. Well, my thoughts were that the plan, according to NICE guidelines in the UK, it's a 6-month journey, isn't it? And that means you start at 2.5 as the introduction dose, moving up in 2.5 increments until you reach 15 milligrams. Now, I would suggest you keep moving on up them, and it's sad that it doesn't work for everybody. But some people, due to whether it be hormonal imbalances, medication that they're already on, or just insulin resistance anyway, different different reasons, some people need the higher dose. And as long as you're not getting the nasty side effects, it's time for me to put it back on the screen that I always do. These ones here, then it's not a problem. I only advocate for being on a lower dose if it's working for you because it minimizes the risk of these side effects. But if you're okay, you feel well, it's not having a nasty side effect in any way for you, then it's absolutely fine. Don't get really concerned if you're on a higher dose and you hear people like me saying, oh, the higher the dose, the more at risk you are. Yes, you are, but you might be absolutely fine. I might be absolutely fine with it. And it's just that because I listen to a lot of doctors, and a colleague at work who's a doctor has spoke to an endocrinologist who suggested that people, if lower doses work for them, stay on lower doses. If you need to be on a higher dose and it's not causing you any problems, that's absolutely fine too. So my advice would be to carry on through the doses as long as you can, and if you're buying them as well, as long as you're happy to keep doing that, because it is an expensive game for people, especially when you're buying it for yourself. But yeah, keep going. And the use of the willpower is really good, because that's the other thing here, is that they've put them in that really good frame of mind, haven't they, to lose 13 pounds. I'm sure that the Mounjaro's helped in some way internally, even if it's not helped mentally. Whatever you're doing, keep it going. Give it give it as long as it takes, really, as long as it needs to be. If you get to that higher dose, and at the end of 6 months, that's where we are supposed to be looking at it and saying, has it worked? Have you lost enough weight for you? If not, then look at something else. That would be my advice. But well done anyway. Next question is from Mel from Moon, which is Lair. Good to see her. I always have a look at the vlog as well. Keep it going, brilliant. And anyone else that's out there, we've got loads of really good people doing the podcasts and the vlogs about Mounjaro, and every journey is different. So Moon, which is Lair, go and have a look. I'll put a link in the box as well for you, Mel, to have a look. But you're asking, she says, congratulations on getting back on track. Thank you for that. Don't let the odd blip spoil the final outcome. Absolutely. Do you feel that 5 milligrams is working well for you? Better or worse suppression and side effects? How long do you think you'll stay on it? Good question. Yeah, because the 2.5 was working well for me, but it was dropping off quite soon, wasn't it? If you remember, I was jabbing on the Wednesday, but by the Saturday it was dropping off, but then sort of coming back in on a Sunday. So it felt all over the place a little bit. And in the end, I sort of juggled up whether I'd move on to the fives, which I did, obviously. But that it's still the same, but the side effects are stronger. So no, the suppression for me is probably about the same. So could I have stayed on the 2.5s? Possibly, yes. Side effects, definitely on the fives, more nausea. Absolutely, definitely, where it was just, I felt good on the 2.5s actually. I don't feel so good on the fives, but the constipation is still an issue, and that's something I'm really having to keep on top of. How long do I think I'll be on it? Do you know, I've been mentioning this to people, you've got to have an end game. And I think at the moment I'm just looking at that 6 month thing that I've just mentioned. But people are talking about maintenance doses and all that type of thing, because unless I can really get into the habits over 6 months of just eating healthy, that's the concern, isn't it? As soon as we say stop taking this, do we just go back into our old ways again? If the final 2 days of the week after the jabs are anything to go by, it can be hard. Like I said, I've been using willpower over the last week. The last 2 days, I found it okay to do, but when we get to the winter months, I mean, it's summertime, we're coming into summer here now, and I always feel better in the summer. I find it easier to do a diet when the weather's nice and sunny outside at the moment as well. We're having a bit of a nice spell. But come the winter months, that's when naturally you want to take more food in. You want to build your calories up, don't you? It's like that caveman side of us, isn't it? How we sort of cope and survive. I don't know, to be honest with you, but the plan is to get to 6 months and evaluate it. But I think it's really a good idea to have that long term goal. What are we going to do at the end of this? I think we all need to think about that right from the start, because do we want to be on jabs for the rest of our lives to control our diets and to control our weight? Or do we want to try and be in a position where we maintain it better? I've already touched upon the fact that this should be seen, and is now luckily seen, as an illness, a disease, obesity, being overweight. And not many of us will be able to survive just on willpower. I don't think I will, to be honest with you, and that's just being honest. But let's see. But it's a really good point, Mel. Well said. Next comment was from, I think it was from Imran. I haven't put the name on, but he's put, "You're doing amazingly well. 1 kilogram is a whole bag of sugar." I like to visualize it that way because it is a value or picture we can relate to. So well done. And to everyone, I also have lost a bag of sugar this week. And if you hold a bag of sugar in your hand, it's probably not the best thing to use in it. Bag of sugar, could probably use it if we're not careful. It's a heck of a lot of weight, isn't it? So you just think, if we lose a kilo, even if we lose a kilo in a month, hold a bag of sugar and say, I've lost that. And here's another thing. Imagine, say if you lose 2 kilos, 3 kilos in a certain amount of time, hold them and walk around for a little bit with it. That's what you were doing before. Look at the people that's lost lots of kilos. Put them in a bag. I mean, I'm not saying go out and do it, but if you ever feel down and you think you're not getting anywhere, put what you've lost in a couple of bags and walk around with it for a bit. And then say to yourself, I used to walk around without even thinking about that. That's a really good thing. Last comment I wanted to mention, and this is for everybody out there that's been following the channel for a little while. Your channel really helps me, and I'm glad you're feeling the support from your viewers. And I wanted to mention this because I really feel supported by everybody that contacts me. And it's really great to have that back. And it's lovely to think that we can share this. And it's helping other people as well. And that's what this little community we've got is all about. So if you're new to the channel, it might not be the right answer for you, but there's certainly lots of really good ideas. As always, if you've got a medical issue that you need to discuss, you need to speak to someone that knows you medically, your doctor, your physician, rather than putting it on here. It's good to get a general idea and how we can go around our diets and how Mounjaro works and the side effects and things like that. But if there's a particular medical issue, we can get a good idea of it and we can give you advice, but ultimately it will always be to speak to someone. That said, we have some really good ideas, like I say, and this person just put on here that the support that they feel they get is really good, and they mention about what they'd eat and how the things were going for them, and it's just lovely to get this sort of feedback. And so thank you everybody for what you do. Basically, I've said it before, I'll say it again. You people out there keep me going, and hopefully I can return that by keeping you going as well. All I'm doing is sharing the support, and that's what this is all about, and that's what it's always been about. So keep it up. It's brilliant. Right, before we get to the injection, which is going to be a little bit different this week, let me tell you about the weighing. I'm not going to do all the getting on the scales and things. It's only been 4 days since I did my last weighing, and it's not fantastic, but it's still positive, and I'm going to take every last little drop of positivity out of it. So on Saturday, I was 116.1 kilograms, which is 256 pounds, 18 stone 4 pounds. Today I weighed myself. I've only done it, it's sort of mid morning here. I've just done it, and I'm 116 kilos, 0.1 of a pound since Saturday. So not a massive drop, but I'm still taking it. I'll take whatever I can get, and it's a positive, and that's what I'm going to say, which is still around 256 pounds, still 18 stone 4 pound, but I haven't put on. So there is some plateauing going on. I still had a good drop on Saturday. And talking about weigh-ins, someone else mentioned on the comments, why don't you just weigh once a week? And I actually told them, well, I came down to twice a week from every day. When I was with Juniper, they suggest weighing every day, which I did to start with, and I was seeing drops every day. But when you do start to plateau a little bit, that can be a bit disheartening. So from now on, it's Wednesday today, I'm going to only weigh in on a Saturday. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree? Some people don't weigh at all. Some people have nerves with getting weighed in at all. Some people go with how they feel. Now, I've noticed my clothing is becoming still much better on me. Now, the other thing to remember is when you sort of plateau as well, if you are working out or doing particular types of exercises, you will build muscle mass, especially if you're keeping the protein up and you're doing resistance training. So you will be toning up, but you'll find that your weight might even out because you're building muscle. And as they always say, muscle is heavier than fat, don't they? I've never even looked into that medically, but I'm assuming it's true. Put me right if I'm wrong. So if you're looking good, you're feeling good, and people are commenting on how you look, and you don't look ill and pasty, and you're not feeling unwell, it's all a positive, and that's what we need to do. Someone said to me, God, you're still losing so much weight. And I actually said, well, to be fair, I haven't lost as much over the last couple of weeks. And they went, oh, it looks like you have. You look really well. And that's really good. That's what we want, isn't it? And don't you feel when you see someone that you haven't seen for a while, especially since you started the diet, the Mounjaro plan, you're waiting for them to say it, aren't you? And who gets disappointed when they don't? I do a little bit, not too bad, but then like it's nice when they do say it, isn't it? Oh, what have you been doing? Oh, you look different. Wow, that's one of the reasons. But the main thing for me and a lot of people out there is, and it is working. Did anyone see my little blood pressure update, the little short I did? Blood pressure was absolutely textbook. So I was chuffed about that. And a few people have commented on that as well, because that is a massive importance. People of a certain age, around my age and older, even younger than me, I'm 52, we need to start thinking, not just, oh, look at the size of me, I can't get into my clothes anymore. Your blood pressure, your cholesterol, make that the most importance, and how we look secondary to that. That's the important thing. If we're overweight, if we're too fat at the end of the day, we're at risk of strokes, we're at risk of diabetes. Some people are on this because they are diabetic. Some people are reversing their diabetes. Well done to them. I'm having lots of comments about that. Should have included a couple. I think that's fantastic. People that have been on metformin, glycoside, all those type of things, they've gone on to Mounjaro, they've dropped loads of weight, and they're in remission from diabetes. If you're one of them, drop me a comment or let people know if you're happy to share, because it will really help the community that are doing this as well, to show people it can be done. I've spoken to patients in the last couple of weeks about it and mentioned it, and they've got no idea that they can reverse diabetes type 2, especially if you've been diabetic quite a short time. The chances of actually reversing that are huge, and it's possible. So come on, folks, reverse that diabetes. So the weigh-in's been done. Let's go and do the jab. I'm going to do something different with the jab this week. I'm thinking just to see, for a couple of reasons. We'll go in and do it now, and I'll talk about it there. So here we are in the jab room, where I do all the cooking and washing, and well, I don't do it all. I do have a family that help with that type of thing, and we share. But this week I am doing something different, and it's so I can advise and see if it's different. You've probably guessed what I'm talking about around the jab, and that is I'm going to change site completely, and I'm going to inject into my thigh, just to see how the suppression differs, because I've only advocated going into the tummy because it's easy. I'm not going to bother with the arm, I don't think, because I've asked my wife about doing it for me, she won't. And the advice is not to inject the arm yourself, although people do, and if you're okay with it, fine, who am I to criticise? But because the guidance is such, and I'm a paramedic, I won't really go against guidance. But if it works for you, fine. But I'm going into the thigh today. So I've got everything set up. I have my trusty hand gel. give your hands a good scrub before you do anything like this. Make sure you've had a shower. If you're coming from work and you work on a building site or something, you don't want to be all grotty around the injection site, do you? Minimise the risk of injections. Have your pen literally just got out the fridge. Some people like to let it warm up a little bit. You don't want to warm it up just to room temperature, but I'm going to use it. It stings a little bit if it's really cold. But if you've been doing it a few times now, a little bit of sting. Mind you, I've never injected into my own leg. I've only ever done my tummy myself, but we'll give it a go. So there's like you can do lower thigh, upper thigh, always on the front, on the anterior side of your thigh. You've got plenty of room there to go with. The tummy you usually rotate around, don't you? So if you just stand up a bit so you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, always 5 centimeters away from the belly button. And other people have mentioned that they've had minor rashes, minor blemishes after the injections. That can be absolutely normal. The things to look out for is severe reactions where you feel really poorly with it, rashes spread, you get hives. The main one is any airway swelling, any compromise of the airway. Over here, 999, anywhere else, 911. Call the emergency services. If you've got a compromise of your breathing, speak to somebody straight away. You may be having a nasty reaction or anaphylaxis. Mild, tiny little site rashes can be absolutely normal. Never inject back in that site whilst the rash is there, or if there's any bruising, don't inject to a red area, a bruised area, change site. Best advice you can go with. So I have, as usual, my packet of needles and some wipes. We'll get set up and we'll go for the tummy. We'll show you all the priming and everything as well. Right, so this is a pre-injection swab. Yeah, we're going to use that to clean the seal on the pen. But we're going to inspect the pen. The first time you ever use the pen, now someone came unstuck with this the other day, and it was I should have mentioned this actually, but I've had that many comments, I did forget. They were given from their pharmacist, and the pharmacist was totally wrong here. And I'm not sure what country they're in. I think it's either the UK or the US. They were due a higher dose, but they were given the lower dose, and they were a dose or two in before they actually realised. So it's really important before you even open it, actually before you even leave the premises. If it's sent by post, obviously that's different. But if you actually go and pick this up, check it's got your details on and check that it's the right dose. This is 5 milligrams. It's my second month of 5 milligrams because I didn't move up to the 7.5. Always check the pen. If there's any damage, if there's any debris in there, fluid in there should be clear, or it can be slightly yellow. Now I've got some lights up with my camera here, so I can always check that really well. Make sure there's no bits in there. If there's any bits floating around in there, it's not recommended for use at all. And we need to prime every time when we put a new needle on to make sure, 1, that the needle works, 2, that we get any air bubbles out. Tiny air bubbles, as I've said before, they're not a problem. They can just be a little bit sore when we inject. So, see there, little red bit, we're going to clean the seal. I always give the pen a good clean because it doesn't hurt. People have said it's pointless doing that, but I feel better for it and it's not going to cause any harm. I just like to be a bit clean. Done. Right. Put that down on a nice clean counter. We've done this before, we'll do it again. So we have the needle. Now, I know people have had to buy these needles for when they've done the golden dose. You can get 4mm needles. Some people have 5mm needles. These are 4mm needles, and that's the length. That is tiny. That's less than half a centimetre, 0.4 of a centimetre. And the gauge is 0.23 of a millimetre. So, yeah, so that's exactly the same. So it's tiny. It's tiny. If you're doing this for the first time, please don't be worried about it. I'm going to make sure it's not been tampered with. It's not been opened before. It's brand new, fresh needle. There we go. Be careful. Don't get sticking your finger in there either, because the other end of the needle that goes into the pen is there, and that's still sharp. So Offer that up nice and square, as I always say, and carefully screw that on there. And then this bit here, we take that off. We keep that to dispose of the needle when we've used it. We only use the needle once. That is another shield or another guard that's actually on the needle itself. We pull that off and that can go in the bin. There we go. Let's have another look at the needle. Hopefully you can see that. Put it against the black t-shirt. I mean, it looks quite thick. It's not. It's absolutely tiny. In fact, I'm going to pull a hair out of my head one day and put it next to that, and you'll see just how similar in size it really is. You can almost see tiny little bead already coming out of there. Now, some people would argue, well, that's prime then, but just follow the instructions, you won't go far wrong. So to prime the pen, we have a little turny button here. And as you turn that, you'll see that comes in and out, see? Like that. So from 0, we give it 2 clicks to that long mark there. And that's the prime position. And then we are supposed to press, when it's on the prime position, we press that in and hold it for 5 seconds, couple of bits of beads, and I always shake that off because you don't need it. And that then is ready to go. So we get it ready for the dose. We carry on turning this, and it will turn either way, look. Some people count the clicks and dose less, but I couldn't comment on that. And we're turning it all the way to numero 1. Number 1 doesn't mean 1 milligram, 1 litre. It clearly just means 1 dose. We go back to 0, no doses. That's not going to press in. Watch it come out when we get to the 1. See how that comes out? And we're going to press that in when we're in the skin. We do not prime when the needle's in the skin. We prime, and I've known people have primed with the needle in. I've known people that haven't primed at all. The other thing to do that I didn't mention that I just do naturally is ensure that if there are any bubbles, it's up that way and the bubbles are up the top, and we squeeze that up there like that. Right then, let's get the jab into the leg done. I'm going into my right thigh, I'm going to upper thigh, always into the fatty bits. Let's get it done. So the pen is all set up. It's on number 1. It's ready to go. Have it nice and comfortable in the hand. Get your thumb ready to go. There we go. Relax your leg. You don't want to be too tense up. You don't want to be going into muscle. You want to be going into a fatty bit of skin. So I'm going to go upper thigh. And this is the first time I will have ever done my thigh. Am I nervous? I am a little bit, actually. But keep it straight. No angles. Dead straight, you're going in, the same as you're going to come out, so you don't have a chance of bending anything or causing yourself any injury. The chances of causing an injury are so minimal. Make sure there's no bits on there. Making sure it's all primed before you inject. And nice and relaxed, in we go. Oh, that doesn't hurt too much at all, actually. Press the plunger down nice and steadily, all the way until it stops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then out. There we go. Any blood? Not a drop. So all done. That's the cap that we had that we kept. Pop it back on there. Unscrew that in the sharps box, like so, because that's finished with. Lid back on the pen. All done. Nice and straightforward. Put this back in the box. It's recommended if you don't necessarily keep it in the fridge. I have started keeping mine in the fridge, but always keep it below 30 degrees, out of sunlight. But mine goes back in the fridge now, and it just makes me feel a little bit better about it. Let's see how that works for me now. So it's a different site. I'll report back if there's any changes. It's start of week 10. We'll catch up with new measurements now on Saturday. Is it Saturday this week? Yes. In fact, it'll be rushed, but I'll be able to do Saturday. I am working Saturday, but I'm also out for the day Sunday, so I'll catch up with you. We'll do something. Might not be as in-depth, but might be pleasing to some people. And I'll see how the new site's gone, see if there's any changes, and we'll start doing weigh-ins just once a week on a Saturday with the Mounjaro. Have a great week, folks. Any questions, any comments, keep them coming. I I still think I'm getting around all of them. There've been hundreds. If I've missed any comments this week, I'm really sorry. I haven't intended to do that. I always try and reply at least something to someone because I've got some fantastic people, fantastic responses out there. So have a good week. Speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.